All right, Big Man, today is Tuesday. It's January 9th. Welcome to the Dog Walk presented by Barstool Sports. As always here, I'm joined by Chief on this Tuesday. How are we?
Doing fine. Feeling fine.
Yeah. I feel a lot better than I did last week.
Why is that? You're just back in the groove?
Yeah, it was just like a fucking long hangover.
I still have the thing where I have no idea what the date is. You know, I know it's like the beginning of January, but I'm still like...
That's kind of all of January, though.
It's just a fog.
Yeah, it's just a weird. Yeah. It's a weird dates month.
Yeah,
weird. Yeah, you know.
You have weird like a month. Like I think next week is Martin Luther King Day. I don't think we get that off, but definitely not anymore. That Penn's not our boss.
But still, it's like, you know, the 15th and the 7th. Like I don't know, everything kind of blends in.
Yeah.
So, today's topic is interesting.
I think so, because we're going to eventually get to a place of something that I know has piqued your interest because we've talked about it before.
Okay.
So, which is that Malaysian Airlines flight.
Yeah.
So round and round we go.
Especially after that Netflix doc.
Yeah.
I still think about that crazy, I mean, we'll get there, but I still think about that crazy guy who suggested that people went under the plane and cut the air source.
What did he do? He like broke into this thing.
Cut the cabin pressure, killed everyone on board.
Yeah, or like knocked him unconscious with something, and then he was like a Russian spy or something.
Yeah, that was wild.
There are still like other conspiracy theories about people like from Texas Instruments who had patents that the government wanted. So they and I can't remember if that was touched on in this, but it's one of those mysteries that still is largely no one has an answer to what happened on that flight, which feels like. I was wondering about this, where it's like, there's probably all these shipwrecks that just like nobody ever, like, oh, where'd they go? Man, we don't know. They're just gone forever. Where it's like in the modern era, like all the data, all the tracking, all the satellites, everything, it feels like impossible to lose something that big.
Yeah.
And yet they did. So it is a crazy story. But that's not, we'll touch on that, but it's not like the main point of this topic today.
All right, let's get into it.
So it's an island called Diego Garcia, and Diego Garcia, it's a small little thing in the middle, smack dab in the middle of the Indian Ocean. It's kind of like equidistant to roughly to Australia, India, and Africa, and it's not near anything. And what it is, and this is not even controversial. It's a naval base. It's a militarized naval base in the middle of nowhere that the United States has been in partnership and in control of with Great Britain since the early 70s. And the British got it, and it's small. It's like a nondescript nothing. Like the government just liked the location because strategically it's in the Indian Ocean. So if you had battles with whoever in that area long term, like you have like a launching point to go to Australia, to China, to India, to the Middle East, Africa, wherever, you could do it from there. But it's not near anything, so nobody knows what the fuck's going on. So in the 60s, we had an arms deal with Great Britain where we sold them all these helicopters and submarines and different things, and they had a debt of $14 million, and which is like a pittance, sounds like nothing in today's money, but $14 million. So we went to them. We're like, hey, let's cut a different sort of deal. You give us this Diego Garcia, which was part of another like chain of islands called Mauritius, which is it's like an independent protectorate of Great Britain still. And they're like, yeah, fine, deal. So between 1968 and 1973, I believe, there was like a native population, and not really native. Like no one, when it was first discovered, nobody was living there, but they had brought people there, basically worked them as like a plantation farmer, growing different shit. And they're like, all right, you guys all have to leave this island. They like kind of gunpoint forcibly removed every, human on that island. So it's basically like, and there's declassified documents that say like, that was part of the reason why it was attractive, because there wasn't like a large native population. It would be kind of, and no like real historical ties. Like Great Britain got it from France and the Napoleonic Wars, and then when it was discovered, I think in the 1600s originally, no one was living there. So they're just returning it back to its original state, which is like seagulls and only seagulls. And in like the declassified documents, it says like, quote, the only native inhabitants there will be seagulls by the time you get there. It's like a memo from Great Britain to the United States about this deal. So they build this outpost, and it is more secretive than even like Guantanamo Bay. Like nobody knows what goes on there. You can't really get satellite photos. You can't visit. It's just like this tropical island place in the middle of nowhere in the Indian Ocean that is like highly, highly classified and highly, highly secretive. And in 2008, Time Magazine, so not like some, crackpot website, whatever you think of Time Magazine, especially back then, they were just reporting, they were like a news magazine, a well-respected magazine. And they reported that after talking to this guy named Richard Clark, who was a special advisor to George Bush, and he was also the guy who was in charge of managing the relationship and the island, Diego Garcia, back in the 90s. With him, he was like overseeing everything that went on there. And then he was like, highest level security clearance in the Bush White House. And they wrote an article in 2008 saying like, this place actually has more detainees than any other CIA black site, and then they have multiple sources, and Richard Clark is on record as one of them, saying that he specifically sat in on meetings where Diego Garcia was considered a potential host site, kind of like a Guantanamo, but not publicized, to bring detainees for questioning, torture, interrogation. Which, have you seen the movie Zero Dark 30?
Yeah.
Okay, so that scene where it's like in the first half of the movie, I would say, but they arrive in Poland and they just go on, they board some ship, and there's this poor guy who's been detained, terrorist, but he's like detained on this boat, like handcuffed, but it's just like, you're not in Poland, but you're not in America, you're kind of in port, so this like no one really has jurisdiction, so that you could just do whatever the fuck you want to these people. And these were called CIA black sites, and they're supposed to be like technically illegal. Bush in 2006 admitted that the United States had them, so we've had them in Poland and Romania and a few other places. And according to this guy and then other sources who remained anonymous in that Time magazine article, say that Diego Garcia is like the biggest of them all. And but no one really talks about it. So he had a quote saying that like, number one, he witnessed discussions about like, hey, because they would be like, what do we do with all these detainees, all these terrorists? We can't keep them in Iraq or wherever they scoop these people indefinitely. Guantanamo is crowded. We need a place to put these guys and question these guys where we can kind of do whatever we want. And he was like, I witnessed those discussions about Diego Garcia, this naval base. And he also said that, they would ask him questions about this. He goes, yeah, I find that report about the detainees and potential torture and human experiments and, these people just disappear forever to be, quote, highly credible, that this is going on at Diego Garcia under United States CIA supervision. So it's like, like that's pretty fucking weird. But like there was never any real follow-up on that. It's just like no one's really been investigated. No one's really ever been questioned. It's just this mysterious place where allegedly people go, and like you can see like, satellite photos of it where you can but it's like not like close, it's like Google Earth. And all you see are like runways and, shipyards and, or ports and things like that. But you can't like, it just looks like a jungle kind of island atoll out there. And then it gets no one really talks about it until this Malaysian flight, MH370, which we had talked about before. And the reason that place has become, a favorite of this conspiracy, which I can't believe we didn't talk about it last time. But there's this American on board who was an IBM employee at the time named Philip Wood. And Philip Wood posted a picture via email. It was just, there's different reports. I haven't been able to find the exact photo. I saw one report that said it was just a black image. And then there's another one that says it's like a weird kind of like almost like a lab looking room. But when you go to look for the exact image itself, you can't really find it, but like everybody references it. And that picture has, they call it, I want to get what the this is like a techie term. It's called an exchangeable image file, and there's data. So there's like metadata with it where you can tell the location, the date, the shutter speed, the aperture, which means like the type of lens and hole it was taken through. And in that image, in that EXIF, that exchangeable image file, it says it was taken on 3/18, which is 10 days after flight MH. That plane went down on March 8th. This was from March 18th, and the location was Diego Garcia, which is, people thought it was going at Madagascar, but it crashed in the no one knows if it crashed, but people are saying like this plane was forcibly landed at Diego Garcia, and those 277 people on board were all just taken to that naval base and never seen again for God knows what reason. Yeah. So where they're supposedly having like human experiments, and they're doing all these different sorts of, so if they're using it for terrorists, who knows what else they're using it for. And that is like a big theory that's out on the internet, is that, if it was shot down, or they did the, they just forcibly took over the controls of that plane through tech and landed it there, and then just had all those people are theoretically still there on Diego Garcia, having God knows what done to them. And you're thinking, when you hear that, you think, like, that's fucking crazy. Like the government is just going to take 277 people and abduct them seemingly at random and hold them hostage while they do all sorts of experiments on them. Like, no fucking way. There's no way that would ever happen. And then you realize that it's like, this is the CIA. And we had programs where we were like, that are similar, like that MK Ultra, where MK Ultra, they were like drugging people. They had, who's the serial killer that came out of there? Charles Manson comes out of there. The Unabomber comes out of that program. And it was like this completely, and it's like, that's declassified now too. That was all CIA, where they were like, we're going to give people LSD. We're going to train them in these various fields. We're going to do everything we can to break their brain and do mind control and experiment on all these different things and kind of make them, it sounds almost like another movie, the Matt Damon ones, where he's like the Jason Bourne. Thank you. Yeah, where it's like the Bourne supremacy, where it's like, hey, you snatch these guys up, and those guys were in the military, obviously, and then you just break them down. They have like no memory of who they really are, but they can speak every language. They have all the weapons training in the world, and it's like not that program was real, but MK Ultra is definitely real, and who knows what they're trying to do or accomplish in these other places. And they have an unlimited budget and total secrecy. And it's like, is this where that flight went? And what is Diego Garcia, and what is it actually used for? And you can't get any real information other than, the official statement out there, the official language. Even if you go on there like Wikipedia, it says it's just a militarized island in the Indian Ocean. So it's like I don't know. Like I kind of believe the CIA is capable of anything, and it wouldn't shock me if they had people. Who knows if it's flight MH 370, but I don't think I believe that one. Gun to my head, I don't believe that's where that went. But I believe that they got people there, that they're doing fucked up shit on that island.
Dude, no shot. 277 people off a rent. Like, yeah, that's not. Listen, if you want to get 277 people on that island, There's probably a way to do that without hijacking a whole fucking plane and making it the biggest mystery of the past fucking decade or whatever.
I agree. But if I were to be like in the year, in this day and age, is it more likely that flight disappeared without a fucking trace? With never found, with all the resources, satellite people, crazy people sitting at home looking on Google Earth, looking for wreckage for, a decade now?
Mm-hmm.
Or the flight was taken and landed somewhere. And then, people are saying, oh, we found this wreckage. Well, maybe they fucking blew it up after the fact and just dumped it in the ocean. Like, that could be a thing, too. So I don't think so. I think you're probably right. Like, there's, it's a less than 1% chance that that's where that flight went. But I don't think it's like you can totally rule it out, because the CIA is capable of all sorts of, like, insane things. Here's another movie reference here. Have you ever seen Manchurian Candidate?
No.
Denzel Washington movie?
No, I'm aware of it, though.
It's a pretty good movie. It's like a great, like, TNT kind of Sunday afternoon, nothing, football season's over action movie.
Mm-hmm.
And but in that movie, they're basically trying to make this guy become the president, and they make him a war hero, and they have this unit from the Gulf War, and he's like the son of a senator, and they like put these implants in him, but they take him to like this mysterious island where they're running all these like tests. So like we know the CIA has black sites, and we know that different shit comes out of there, and I bet you they're doing things, maybe not like Manchurian Candidate, maybe not like Bourne, and maybe it's not this flight, but it's like, why are they so secretive, and why do they have this place there? Like, what is going on there? And it feels like these are the types of questions that we never get answers to, because there's too many other questions that are above that. But something is going on at Diego Garcia, and it's not like anybody ever voted to spend money to develop that place, and we don't know what it's used for.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now.
What do you think? Do you understand my point about like the MK Ultra, where they have done like crazier things? Yeah.
But I feel like you've learned. I mean, you hope people learn from.
Maybe you hide it better. Maybe that's the lesson, that you hide it better. And I was listening to, this was a while back. I think it was, Jimmy Carr, the comedian.
Yeah.
So he's a British comedian.
He's like lost his mind, right?
Oh, has he?
Yeah, from what I understand.
Oh, I let's figure that out.
I could be wrong, but
I think he just did a special. He was on Rogan within the last 3 months.
Yeah.
So, but he had this thing that I thought was kind of interesting, this theory, where he's like, they're talking about, the American empire is collapsing, right? That seems like what everybody's talking about. The age of America is coming to an end. And they're talking about historically all these other collapsing empires. And he mentioned the Roman Empire. And he's like, the Roman Empire collapsed. And it's like, well, he's like, I don't think it actually collapsed. It's like, well, of course it collapsed. He goes, no, I think it became the church. Okay, it became the Catholic Church. Mm-hmm. Because it's like, where is all the riches, all the antiquities, all the stuff from the age of the Roman Empire, that they conquered all of Europe and stretched all the way to like Pakistan, Afghanistan, and all the way to, up to Scotland, basically. And where were all their riches from the Roman Empire? Well, they're in the basement of the Vatican. The Vatican is its own country inside of Rome, where they're the only ones that have access. That's another super secretive place that we should probably do an episode on the Vatican at some point. I'd love to get like some kind of expert in on that too. And then he's like, okay, what happened to the British Empire? The old expression, the sun never sets on the British Empire. And it's like, well, the British Empire didn't die. It became a bank. So, the City of London, which we've done an episode on the City of London before. And it was like, all right, well, yeah, you can have, Saudi Arabia or all these places in the Middle East. You can have your country back and the resources, but you have all this money, but you're going to keep it in our bank. Like, we're going to manage your money. Okay. And then the United States after World War II kind of, became, one of the financial institutions as well, because everything is done for the last 80 years. All big financial trade is done with the U.S. greenback as the form of currency. But then also there was that theory we did last year where it was like similar to what the Jimmy Carr thing is saying, where it's like the Roman Empire became the church, London became the bank, and maybe the United States is just like the military. And it's like they all have like those obelisks in their city centers. So like DC has the Washington Monument, Vatican has an obelisk, like a big, which looks exactly like the Washington Monument. City of London has one as well. And it's like maybe we're just, you know, our so you have the spiritual, and then you have the money, and then you have the military might. And at various points in history, different groups controlled all three. And now it's like maybe it's still the same group, but they're under different nationalities, and this is theoretically one of them. And so now it's like the United States, they have carte blanche to do anything militarily because they have the money and they have the secrecy and they have the power and the might, where they're just like, yeah, we're going to break we're going to break the Geneva Conventions, and we're going to have these places like Guantanamo Bay, these black sites in Poland, Romania, and Diego Garcia, because who's going to fucking stop us? We can do whatever we want. And it's like that deep state intelligence agency shit, where it's like we can kill our own president, theoretically, allegedly. We can invade Vietnam. We can invade Iraq on false pretenses. We can do all these different things without any repercussions, because we're the real lone military power in the world at this point. And it's like an interesting theory that there's just always like, there's like transfers of power, but that power that transfers it like kind of almost in name only. Like it's still the Roman Empire, you know, and that's kind of like this, you know, that's where that CIA, I just feel like they are just allowed and able to do anything. And maybe that's going on down there too. That Diego Garcia.
I messed up. I was Jimmy Dore, not Jimmy Carr. Wrong Jimmy.
What, Jimmy Dore went insane?
Yeah, well, not insane, but I think he's just like a, you know.
He's out there a little bit. He's like a political pundit. Yeah,
that's what I mean. Where it's like,
I don't know about.
Wrong Jimmy.
I feel like I see clips of him, but he's definitely like a Russell Brand in that category of political commentary. Yeah,
they got the green screen behind them, and they're just like, you know, just going off.
Yeah,
which, you know, I don't know.
Whatever, more power to you, I guess. Yeah, but yeah.
And I also could be mischaracterizing that, so my fault if I am.
I like Jimmy Carr.
I'm not. Yeah,
I find him very interesting. I want to say he was the guy. I could have this wrong too, but he was a guy who had kind of like a straight job and was never really a comedian. And then he like almost like came up with an algorithm for telling jokes. Like there's this and then there's that. And then like he like, so he wasn't like this guy who's always like the funniest guy in his class, but he like kind of understood the structure of joke telling better than anybody, and then taught himself how to be a comic instead of like being born naturally with it. So I always found him kind of interesting.
Yeah, no, I got you.
Yeah.
All right then, Diego Garcia,
CIA black site.
Yeah. Those little islands always fascinate me. Like I just went to Key West for the first time this year, and there's just so many just random little pieces of land that are unoccupied.
Yeah. Or, you know? But even like the occupied ones too. I was watching this show about how the first people who got to Hawaii, okay, which were the Polynesians. But Hawaii's far from Polynesia. So it's like nobody was there before them, because, you know, it's not like it was some breakaway or sea level change thing that caused it. It was just a chain of volcanoes in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And it's like thousands of miles from the nearest Polynesian outpost at the time. So they say that like if you're like an expert seaman, you know, a ship captain, and they had these like basically they were like well crafted boats, but they're more or less canoes, okay, that they were able to tell that there was some island like way in the distance, like hundreds of miles in the distance, based upon the way the light was refracting off the waves. Because even though it's like you can't see an island in the horizon, like it almost is like the waves coming around, they could see the waves coming out, the pattern of the waves around the island, and the way the sunlight would hit them, the curvature of those lines would be like there's something out there. So they would go towards like these refractions in the, which I don't even like, how do you even see that or notice that? They would sail towards that. So they sailed north like hundreds of miles towards this bending of the light that was coming from the waves going around the Hawaiian Islands. And then they would be like, oh, there's birds. We can follow those birds. They got to be going somewhere. Well, they were going to Hawaii. And that's kind of how they navigated the Pacific Ocean. And they think they probably got all the way to, there's a lot of theories that say that Polynesians, and we've talked about this as like my sweet potato fact, that they got all the way to the Americas. And now there's like, people are like, oh, everyone always thought it was like the land bridge, right? That's what we were always taught in school during the Ice Age, where the Indians came over the land bridge in Alaska and went all the way down. And they did that like 13,000 years ago or something. Well, there's these salt flats. I think they're in New Mexico or Utah or something like that, where they're able to carbon date human footprints in those salt flats to 40,000 years ago. So it's like, we just don't know. We don't know anything. We don't know about Diego Garcia. We don't know about the CIA. We don't know about human history. We don't really know anything.
Yeah.
We have like such a narrow view. And it really does fascinate me. Like, and like, even if you see those weird waves off in the distance, I'm not risking it all. I'm staying at home. I'm going to go over the ocean for months on end, hoping that there's something there.
Explorers, man.
Yeah.
Explorers.
That's like the human, that might be like the most defining, the thing that separates us from animals more than anything else is that we have like that spirit where it's like, even if it's like you're discovering, technology, like how things work. Like no one else really, no other species like other, because they used to define humanity as like we're the only things that use tools. Well, then you see like gorillas will use like blades of grass to get termites out of termite mounds, and chimps have some rudimentary things, and they'll use certain stones to crack open nuts and other things. And so it's like, well, and we're still kind of like them. Like they're using tools, they're rudimentary tools, but they're using them. There's like those orangutans that like, there's a picture of an orangutan like spearfishing. You ever seen that?
I don't think I have.
Oh, it's like fucking creepy. It makes you think like we're trending towards Planet of the Apes, but it's not that long ago. I'll see if I can send it over to Lance.
Orangutan spearfishing.
Yeah. Orangutan. I don't even really. Nope. Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah. Look at that.
Wow,
look at that fucking guy.
Yeah. Wow, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Right?
Ingenuity.
Right. So that's, I don't know. Like that's fucking. So they're using tools. Okay. So they're not using phones, but they're using tools. Eventually, originally we were doing shit like that too. And then we got to where we are today. But it is fascinating how like maybe they're just in like their early Stone Age, because like we went through that at some point where it's like, hey, let's smash these rocks together, see what
That'd be crazy.
Yeah.
Planet of the Apes.
Yeah. Well, that's like the big reveal at the end where they're wandering through the desert and then they find like the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah.
So it is fascinating to think about all that kind of stuff. I think about that stuff all the time.
Yeah.
A little 3 cheese and then get into these.
Think about how orangutans are going to take all your
maybe in 100,000 years, million years. You never know. You never know how things evolve.
All right, then. We could wrap it there. Thanks, Chief. We'll be back tomorrow with a free swim. See everybody then.